mental health care has long been neglected in Africa, with many countries lacking basic services, while others, where the services are available, the outlooks remain bleak. This neglect is manifest in the inadequate attention from the general public, the healthcare system, and policymakers. This has resulted in far-reaching consequences for the affected individuals and their communities. Now, joining me for this conversation on the voice of Kenyan youth in matters mental health are Samuel Mungai and Lisa Otieno. But before we delve in, I'll allow them to make their introductions.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Otieno. I'm a USIU radio host and a psychology major, and I'm really glad to be here.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Samuel Mungai. I am a researcher. I double up also as mental health advocate, among other things. I'd say that's dominantly what I'm in.
Thank you so much again for coming back. Remember, you're having this two vibrant, that's what I consider them, vibrant Gen Z again on this set, and it's a conversation that is really alarming. This week we had a 29-year-old man set himself ablaze. And we also had over 10 suicide cases reported in Kiambu, just 2 months. There's another woman and a man who found 30-year-olds under 35 found dangling in a tree. And the question, because this is something you have to talk about in as much as it is a somber topic, what is causing all this Gen Z suicide rates? Maybe we can start with the lady.
Thank you. So as a psychology major, we talk about the causes of suicide and suicide ideation largely. So the reasons vary from age group to age group, but as a Gen Z, the leading causes would be depression, whether high-functioning depression or actually diagnosed clinical depression. It comes in very many forms that I cannot go into right now, and people don't know how to cope. So like many people being in an African society don't look at therapy as something that is viable for them. So even if they're struggling, they would attribute it to something like, you know, maybe life is just not good, I'm so sad and all that. Yeah, so that it could be a really major factor.
I see that you're agreeing, Mungai. Maybe give us your thoughts on that as well.
I'd like to also echo what Lisa has been saying, my very informed panelist here. I'd say one thing we need to understand is that suicides happen in moments of crisis. That's first. Yeah. Just to introduce a bit of like numbers to the situation, globally, depression is the leading cause of disability. And not only does this work in part as an effect to the economy, but it also adds to the burden of disease. So bringing even the numbers closer to home, 1.9 million Kenyans have had reported depression cases. That means 1 in every 4 Kenyan is suffering from some sort of form or some form of depression. And this varies from very mild to very severe cases. And just even to put it into even more deeper into numbers, since between 2015 and 2018, there has been 1,442 attempted suicides.
Wow.
Now this also varies, and it's something that I believe my panelists and myself will be speaking on in terms of how men, or rather the gendered perspective of how men tend to attempt towards suicide. But just to mention something briefly, and I know we're really stretched for time, so I'll try to be very brief. And I wrote them down because sometimes I tend to speak a bit too much. So I'd say suicide in itself comes as a last resort act. When you feel like, as our panelists have said, when you feel like you've been pushed too far to the wall, or rather to the edge of the cliff, it feels safer to jump off than to push back. So there is things like social class struggle, and I wouldn't say in social class in the sense of I have money, you don't, or rather, are you comfortable in the class that you're in? And this differs because we're having suicide cases among the very rich and the very poor. So it's not that having money or not having money is an issue, but also in some of these low and middle income countries, there is that mental health gap in services. And Kenya falls into that low and middle income country.
And you're going to get into that because recently the Chief Justice Koome actually proposed that to remove attempted suicide as a misdemeanor that is punishable by 2 years or a fine or both. And I'm just interested about why someone attempting suicide, this is somebody who is going through a lot of mental illness, and to the idea that it is a misdemeanor and worthy of a jail term, I don't know.
Well, very, very interesting perspective, and I think we'll get into that more as we talk about it. So maybe should we?
Yes, so first of all, let's talk about the telltale signs of someone who is suicidal or thinking about it. As a content creator, I know these are areas you've touched on, and also as a mental health advocate. Remember, we celebrated World Mental Health Day, October 10th, so this is coming in late, but now it has been pushed because we have so many cases rising, especially with Gen Z. What are some of the telltale signs? I know we live with other young people, we are also young people. Maybe bring it home and as close and personal as possible. Don't mention names, of course, because it's a sensitive topic, but bring it as home and close as possible for other young people also listening to us. You've talked about something very interesting, social class and accepting where you are, something also with dealing with heartbreaks and relationships. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so telltale signs, right? Well, as somebody who has witnessed a total of 8 suicides in the course of a semester before in my school, right? Most of these people had high functioning depression, something that I had mentioned prior, right? Now, the thing with high functioning depression is you have to be very keen in order to catch the signs, because it could be as simple as someone saying, I am really struggling. And you know, when we ask, okay, talk to me about it, we only touch on it on a superficial level, right? But listen to those little cries for help, like, honestly, I am tired. You know, someone can be saying, I am tired, and you're thinking it's like fatigue. And if you take time to have that conversation with them, you may come to realize that they're talking about life in general and they want to put a stop to it. It's harder to catch it in high functioning depression. But when we're talking about clinical depression, that someone is very low functioning, it is very easy to see, because even the most basic of tasks become a challenge to them, right? You find a situation whereby someone does not feel like going to take a shower or brushing their teeth or having food, and it's characterized by a lot of shame and guilt. So whenever you try reaching out to such people, you may find that they tend to be very defensive and be like, I'm just going through something, you know, leave me alone, or something like that. And by the time it gets to a point of suicidal ideation or actual suicide, it will have been a struggle of them, you know, trying to show you that, okay, I am not okay, and I know I am not okay. And most times they actually blame themselves a lot. So when you see signs of a lot of self-blame, some people self-harm, guilt, and not doing things that they would practically enjoy, that is something you definitely want to look out for.
Okay.
I'll just be very brief, because Lisa has been very extensive and has expounded on the topic. I'd say the biggest, or rather one of the indicators towards, I'd say, a depressive episode is a breakdown in avenues of self-help. When an individual is not in a capacity, rather in a situation where they can carry out themselves or carry out their duties in fullness, that could also be an indicator. There has been links to other form of disorders, and that's why whenever I'm talking about mental health, I tend to lean towards mental health problems rather than mental health, or rather mental illness, because that brings in the complexity of, you know, disease and contextualizing, I'd say, very clinical terms. There is avenues where you can see the social withdrawal. That's varies between men and women. And also I'd love for us to get into the more gendered perspectives and nuances of how men and women, and we're looking at very cis narratives. So this, or rather the studies, are not really structured or rather leaned towards other forms or other genders, and the inclusion of that, because that also complicates the issues even further. But I'd say one of the clear ways is just understand that there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I'd like to draw attention to this one video just to finish. This one video by Norwich Football Club. It's in Norwich, Norfolk. You can just check out their social media. They did a very eye-opening ad, short video. It's like 3 minutes long, on how mental health, or rather mental struggles, manifest. And I'd love for everyone to just watch it, because it's a very, I'd say, real and a very humane way of approaching it.
Now, Lisa, you mentioned something very interesting, and even as Gen Z is now getting into the workforce, and we are realizing, well, some of us, they did careers that they're not practicing, and they're trying to attain their dream. And Mungai also mentioned about social class and these aspirations and goals, but it seems too hard to reach. And you said that somebody could say, I'm struggling, I'm tired, and we have the older generation surrounding them. So as younger people yourselves, because we are not immune to these kinds of happenings and these kinds of emotional states, have you had older generations who have supported you or have brushed you off? And in those moments, what did you expect, or what would you have rather been shown or given?
Okay, that's a really good question. So we have to understand our culture, first of all, because from the African perspective, mental health or mental illnesses are not things that have been common, right? It would rather be associated with, some sort of rebellion on your side, or maybe for people who are superstitious, a curse or something of the sort, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I feel like this is going to take a lot of effort from both Gen Zs and the older generation, because there's a lot of sensitization that needs to happen, right? Many young people right now, many people in my generation know about, mental health, mental illnesses, but understanding where our older generation is coming from will help sensitize them, right? Of course, it's easier to brush it off when it has never happened to you until it hits home. But what I have observed from the older generation is, once it hits home, it forces people to come to an understanding of what exactly mental health and mental illnesses are. Because if it is affecting your child, right, you're not going to brush your child aside. So I know we need to have a lot of patience with the older generation, who are also coming to terms with it. There was a time in my school, whereby we were going through an orientation program with parents, and you could hear the topics of mental health coming about. So they are willing to learn, because you'll have so many parents asking, with mental health and mental health disorders being a big thing right now, what is this institution doing to make sure that our children are in the right frame of mind? And I feel like, give it a few years, people will come to adapt. The older generation will come to adapt and look at mental health as being as important as, your normal physical health.
Yeah. Guy, before we go, I'll go back to our stories. Give me your take, and then right before that, we'll talk about weaponizing mental health. So in 1 minute, give me your take on that.
Should I respond to the first one or the second?
Respond to the first one, weaponizing mental health among Gen Z. I know it's sensitive, but we have to go there. So give me your take on Lisa's opinion, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay, I'll start off with the older generation.
Yeah.
Just a few numbers. You know me, I love numbers.
Stats.
The stats really pushed a narrative.
Yes.
So Kenya was, according to the World Health Organization, a report that came out in 2018.
Yeah.
Kenya was ranked 5th most depressed country in Africa. Now, one thing we need to understand is there's two ways to look at that.
Yeah.
One is Kenya has a very extensive mental health structure in comparison to other countries, and hence it's much easier to report mental health issues in Kenya than in some countries. So maybe that number can change, and we can either go up higher or lower in that list. Secondly, when it comes to our parents, there's this thing, or rather, some of the random facts that I got to find out as I was just been doing mental health advocacy in this space is, in Kenya specifically, the most depressed people are actually upper echelon middle income women between the ages of 40 and 44. So this is not an issue that's just affecting young people. So even when parents or rather our elders look at it, how do they respond to it with our children? And I'll tie this response to what you just asked in terms of weaponizing mental health. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but pre-2020 and post-2020, there was an emo movement. And this is conditioning through social media and our intake of movies, popular culture, and dominantly from the West. So I'm talking about global North, the US, the UK, France, some of the things that we're ingesting. I don't know if you're familiar with the show 13 Reasons Why.
Yes.
There was the positive effect as mental health was brought to the
Right. Yeah.
a topic, but there have been reported cases as people would enact or rather push narratives towards that reality, influenced by the show. And for those people who don't know about the show, it's a show where a young lady leaves behind a note and after proceeds to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Okay, so about weaponizing mental health. As a psychologist, it is very important for me to put this out there that you need to know what you're terming as depression, as anxiety, or whatever it is that you think you're suffering from, right? We tend to exaggerate things, right? You could be feeling sad, which is a normal human emotion, and it has gone on for a period of time, maybe due to normal reasons. Maybe you did not get a job that you wanted.
Maybe ovulating. Maybe
it could be
PMS.
hormonal issues.
Yeah.
If, like, I mean, women, we know all the hormonal issues we go through, right? You could be going through extreme sadness and be quick to label it depression. We have a tool called DSM-5 TR. It is the revised version, and you can find this online, right? You have to check at least 6 of the symptoms there, 6 out of the 8 symptoms of depression for you to qualify to have depression. You cannot just wake up in the morning feeling sad and it has been a bad day, maybe sometimes you have a bad day and say that you're depressed. It also has to be going on for a period of time. Now, the problem we see with our generation is we are quick to say, oh, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD, without looking at DSM-5 that is supposed to be telling us that this symptoms right here are what qualify you for having depression. And sometimes we tend to exaggerate it in our minds, right? So now, with this being said, right, not every time that you're sad, you're going to be depressed. So don't be quick to say, oh, I am depressed, you know, my mental health is going to be affected and all that.
Not giving good vibes.
Yeah, oh, it's not giving. No, mental health and mental illnesses are very serious. And by us just labeling anything on earth a mental health issue, we tend to downplay the severity of those who are actually going through it. So I must actually say this. Be careful before you go ahead and say that, oh, I am going through this, I'm going through depression and all that without being diagnosed. Now, the funny thing is the body keeps score, right? There's something about saying something to yourself that it becomes a reality. Right? And mental illness is not something that we're supposed to use to get out of something. Like every minor inconvenience, you're like, oh, my mental health is at stake, right? Because we would not joke about cancer, right? And mental health issues and mental illnesses are as serious as every physical illness that is out there. Yes. So, well, I'd just like to say that we need to be more careful with our words and be more mindful before we say that we're going through something that we really are not. If you take time to just analyze it, you might realize that, oh, I actually had 5 minutes of a horrible session during this day, and I'm milking it for days on end.
I remember at one point, I was having this discussion and I think it got me under fire a lot because I looked at just during my time in school and having anxiety, or those, let me say, quote unquote, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, because I hadn't finished an assignment. And I'm like, well, just do the assignment prior. If you need to go somewhere, why should you go to an interview 2 hours or leave the house at 7:30 when you're going at 9? Of course you're going to get anxiety. Of course you're going to panic. But I was told, Tracy, you're being insensitive, and there are people who actually experience this. But I would love to continue talking about this, but I don't think our producer has given us enough time. And now I want to go to gendered perspectives. The largest number of deaths and attempts of suicide is in men. When and where should men talk to avoid breaking certain stereotypes? Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing up this conversation, because I think this is one of the more important questions to ask. Yeah. So basically, you're asking, or rather pivoting your question towards how men and women enact masculinity and femininity. Yeah. And one thing I'd like to say is women internalize, rather, they excel in internalizing disorders, so such as anxiety, depression, while men are more, or rather exceed more in externalizing disorders such as substance abuse, aggression. Now, the question here is, this is one of the few recorded significant gender differences. While men tend to portray direct aggression, women are more covert and more leaning towards indirect aggression, and that means most men tilt towards violent means when it comes to suicide ideation and also enactment, while women tend to take more direct, more overt approaches. And this also feeds into the success rate of these suicide attempts, because, and in all seriousness and all protocols observed, jumping off a bridge, if you were to change your mind in the moment, you're already off the ledge. But now if you take pills, there are other ways that you can, you know, and I do not want to trigger any moment with anyone.
We are not encouraging, this is a public service announcement, this is not to encourage you actually taking this matter very seriously.
And that's one of the few reasons, as you can see, as to why men tend to tilt towards that. And this also ties in with social pressure, social expectation, and it doesn't even break down in the sense of enactment, but also in your role as a man in society. How are you expected to behave? If you're in a group of men and you say, I'm feeling quite sad, and someone says, stop acting like a woman, and then does being sad, is it only centric to women and men should never be sad? But also even in the role of a man in society, that's one of the things we need to attach. I've also had a very controversial approach towards things. I've seen that with men and also with the clients that I've taken through counseling and all these things, is there is the positive, I've seen a positive effect where men would tend to move away from talk therapy and move towards purpose acts. So with my male rather clients, I will tend to give them tasks to do in between sessions, and I would see they'll be more active, more awake, and more open. And you know, the beam happiness, they say there's a famous quote that says, it's in the eyes, Chico, the eyes don't lie. And you could see that when you give them a purpose. So I'd say with men who are really struggling with mental health issues, there is that, as I said, that gap between self-help, purposeful work, and a bit of, I'd say, mitigation, or rather hand-holding when it comes to talk therapy, which is not, I wouldn't say the only method that we can approach. I would advocate for more counselors out there to take up more methods, or rather diversify how they go about it, rather than just purely focusing on talk therapy, counseling therapy, where you just talk to your clients.
And just to add maybe some icing on that cake right there, I got the opportunity in my daily work to interact with Kenya Human Rights Commission during the National Dialogue Week of Human Rights. And there was this kit by a really talented group of young people, and they're looking at also domestic violence. And this man was portrayed as abusive, and he's actually the perpetrator. Fine, we're not trying to encourage domestic violence or even underestimating the role of both partners, but essentially portraying the man as, or vilifying the man as the perpetrator alone. When you hear this man says, I have to provide for my family, I've been laid off, this is happening, the economy, the government, who is protecting the man? Lisa, maybe I can have your take because we're about to wind up. But before we wind up, we must talk about prevention. But give me your take on that as well.
Okay, about suicide prevention.
Yes.
I'd always say seek professional help.
Yeah.
There is a misconception that seeking professional help makes you weak. It's acknowledging that there is something wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
But if you are sick, you go to a doctor,
Yeah.
right? And I know people, whenever people are thinking about going for therapy or counseling, you think of the prices that come with it. But there are community-based counselors who would do counseling for free or at a very minimal fee,
Yeah.
right? I know there's this community-based organization called This Is Me, and they have the best services for people who are not able to afford therapy, for instance, right? So always seek professional help, but sometimes it feels a little bit far-fetched to seek professional help. So this is where coping mechanisms come in. When you feel like you are so close to the edge that you want to jump off, try and find that bubble of peace. It could be in form of journaling. It could be in form of taking a wellness walk. It could be in form of just talking to a friend, right? Because every single day that you push it further is one step closer for you to getting better, right? So talk to somebody, find an outlet, because if you're harboring everything inside, then it will explode in a sense. So find an outlet. I'll always emphasize on outlet. Yes.
Finding a tribe, and especially on men, breaking the stereotypes of finding help.
I've always been a huge advocate for healthy friendships. That's normally one of the pillars towards positive or rather growth in terms of your mental health. When you're in a situation where, if you are in a situation or rather you're not feeling down, can you bring it to your friends first? And you know, this ties in with a very toxic culture that's going around now in Gen Z. And I'm not saying it's all Gen Zs that are very toxic and everyone hates their friends. There's some people with very beautiful, very giving, healthy relationships. So what I'd say is, even as you push towards that, Lisa does bring a very important point in seeking professional help, but there's also the factor of the role of the people in your life and how they affect your stresses. So as I've said, it does begin at home. Look at the friend groups, look at how healthy your conversations are, look at the people you allow into your life. We have this "I will cut off anyone at any moment" type of culture.
Even if it's my parents.
Cut off someone, not because you think they're toxic or social media told you they're toxic, but how do you feel around them? Do their eyes beam when you walk into the room? How is your energy levels and how do you feel when you're around them? These are very simple, rather very human aspects towards interaction, social interaction. The kind of friends, and which camera am I looking into?
Look at whichever. I think this one is yours.
The kind of, let me just look at, the kind of friendships that you build will inform the state of your mental health. And that's the foundation. And once you mess with the foundation, you'll be going back to a not so well done house. And there's no stability in that. So think about the kind of friends you're making first. Look at how you can better and feed into those relationships.
Wow, there's so much to talk about when it comes to Gen Z and mental health. And part of it is substance-induced disorders. We have workplace environment and culture around there. But unfortunately, that's all the time we had for tonight. I'm hoping to have you guys back again on set for more and more of these conversations, because now I think as Gen Z, we need to have a voice more and more. And something that maybe I might give you as a one take that I've heard from the conversation that we've had is that sometimes emotions are just emotions. You don't need to dwell on them.